Why is it not going? Huh?
I'm seeing a little
Welcome to
light.
the JT and Looney Podcast. Yeah, JT and Looney Podcast. Welcome in, everybody. It's our year in review as we look back at the year 2025. Some of the great moments and some of the not so great moments. Merry Christmas. I talked to you on Christmas. Happy holidays, the great Tom Looney. How are you, Tom?
Well, one of the great, not so great moments there was when I interrupted you before the show even started. But if
Well,
in my own defense, you were waiting for the live icon to go up, and it came up on my side before yours. So I wanted to let you know it was there. And the second I opened my mouth, you opened yours. So par for the course when you're
well,
hosting.
we'll move that to the New Year's resolution portion of the podcast, right? Remember, we're going to get to our resolutions. And man, do I have a list. I have a list of my personal
Right.
resolutions that I need to make. I know you don't freak out from December 29th to January 3rd. Your life doesn't change in 3 or 4 days when you get on a whiteboard and change your workout and your diet because you're disciplined all year. But
Ridiculous.
a lot of us civilians, we buy into the hocus pocus that we get new calendars. As a matter of fact, I got my new calendar. That was one of my Christmas gifts. Because I live out of a calendar. So we're going to get into what we'd like to also change in this upcoming year.
Sure, and I'm a huge believer in New York in goal visualizations, and for people writing down goals. I really encourage everyone in my life to do it because I do think that it's like buying a pair. If you want to start running or you want to run in a marathon, but you don't run at all, buying that pair of running shoes is like the first step. And I believe when it comes to goals and visualization and realizing your goals, writing them down is like buying that pair of running shoes. It is the first step, and I do think it's important, no matter what the date is.
Yes, well, today is the day after Christmas, December 26th. And I want to start off on a serious note and get this going right out of the gate. I just got back from Florida on Christmas Eve day, and my mom suffered a very serious illness. And I got a call last week that my mom fell ill. It was really serious. It was very sudden. And I had to jump on a plane. Of course, I wanted to. I couldn't get there. It's quick enough and fly from Vegas to Fort Myers, Florida to get to Naples, Florida, and was there to see my mom. And when I got there, she was not in good shape. She's in very serious shape now, but it was worse when I got there. And it took a lot out of me. It took a lot out of me those couple of days emotionally, being around my mom, who's the best and I love, and watch her fall ill, to be around my dad, who's 87 and had to step up, obviously, because he's never been apart from her whole life, his whole life. And then my sisters, who are rock stars, and they're down there now taking care of my mom as I'm back in Las Vegas. But what I wanted to say is, and we all know how important family is. And if anything ever happens with family, drop everything and be with them. And in radio, it's kind of different, but it's not. It never crossed my mind that I was going to work. And my bosses, I got basically three bosses: the Raiders, the radio station I'm on in Vegas, and then the Sirius XM family I'm in with Mad Dog. And all three of my superiors or bosses said to me, go now, go, we got you covered. And, this isn't brain surgery where I'm a neurosurgeon, just get someone else to come in and fill in. But no, these people were so good. They said, go right now. It's the first broadcast I missed in 28 years in regards to the pre or the TV or the coach's interview for the Raiders. And I was able to get there and be there for my mom and give her some reassurance. She gave me a lot of reassurance when I left and came back on Christmas Eve, very excited about the progress she's making, how quickly she's making progress, but it's going to be a long road ahead. And I just wanted to share that with our audience. I was off the grid last week for that reason.
I adore your mom, and I'm so sorry for the horror that you've gone through, and your dad, and your family, and your sisters. And we are at that age where a lot of people our age have elderly parents. We both, you recently, as you know, not that long ago, when I turned 47, I started getting paranoid about age, and I started going to friends' parents' funerals and friends' parents' hospital beds. And we are at that age. We had your great 60th birthday bash blowout in Vegas. We all got to see you and so many members of your family. And so our prayers are with them and with your mom. And hopefully, one thing we need to do, especially with the elderly, is when they have to rehab from anything, sometimes the hospitals and the rehab facilities are a little paranoid about lawsuits. So make sure they get even help them with some extra rehab so we can have them with us for a long time.
Yeah, I've been very lucky. My wife and I both have our parents in their mid to late 80s.
Yeah.
I know you lost your dad at a very young age, and I'm always aware of this. My parents hopefully are going to be here for a very long time, but when something happens so suddenly, it changes everything. And the way a lot of people get through this is family. Luckily, I have my sisters in Florida, and they're on the front line, and they're really great. And my dad's strong. But some people don't have families, or they might just have one parent, and the other parent is left alone, or something could happen. So I'm very conscious of that, even more so after doing this turnaround trip and watching my mom in the beginning in such a severe bad shape. And then when I left her, smiling, talking, and coming out of it, but a long road of rehab in front of her. And she's just the person to do it. She is something. She is strong. She was playing golf last week before the incident. She's on a bocce ball team. She loves to go to happy hour in Naples. And she will be back because she has one energy like me. It's go, go, go. So I feel good. And my mom loves you and everybody in my life and in my family, my immediately family. So that's how we spent most of Christmas, even though my mom and my sisters and dad didn't spend it the way I did back home with my wife and kids. And I'll be wheels up heading back there a bunch, I have a feeling, in the next 6 to 8 months. So just wanted to share that with you and all. And now on to our year in review. And where do we even start?
Well, do you want to start with the sports or the world?
Yeah, I think we should start with the world. I would say that in December, mid-December, starting like 2 weeks ago till now, is one of the most batshit crazy times I've ever seen in politics. And I mean ever, from social media to the White House to the left to the right. Everything that's going on, it feels like we're racing to 2026. News dumps heading into Christmas, coming out of Christmas. I mean, Tom, it is like the wackadoodle highway going on from 1600 Pennsylvania all the way to the left coast of Los Angeles and downtown LA and the future of this great republic we live in.
And we love our famous people in this country. And matter of fact, our job is predicated on talking about famous people, normally athletes most of the time. But as you know, as long as you've known me, I've always advocated for more of a Belgium system of democracy with no president and no elected officials, and just have them do stuff. Because and I said that long before Trump was hogging headlines, because it was just all of a sudden getting to be too much. There was not Trump derangement syndrome; it was Obama derangement, Bush derangement syndrome, and Obama derangement syndrome. And no matter who became president, there was everyone had to take a side. And then if I have a different viewpoint than you on politics, then you're a bad guy, which is not the way conversation in the town square is supposed to go. We're supposed to argue over politics and tell you each other you're nuts like we do, and then have a beer. So I do wish, that we would tone down the rhetoric when it comes to politicians, or not have them all together and just have the government run without them, as it does in Belgium and a lot of other countries. And things do run pretty well, even when we don't hear from the president, no matter who the president is.
Yeah, I just think it's nuts now, because as I was traveling here the last 5 or 6 days and in airports, and it was limited to the news I got, but I wasn't limited to my phone. And I don't know. I know they know what I look at, and I know who I follow and who I don't follow. I'm following people, and I follow people in politics, which opens up an algorithm
I know,
to not only my side of the party and what I look at, but the other side of the aisle and what they're looking at. And that's, again, I keep teasing getting to the New Year's resolution. That's going to be a big one about what we should be looking at in the new year. What should we be consuming
Oh,
our
that's so
time
good. You're
with,
right.
consuming our time with, and what we shouldn't. And I think I had a moment with that over the last couple of days, but I don't know if it's going to last. I could sit here on December 26th and say, in the new year, I'm not going to look at political feeds as much. I'm not going to turn on this cable news channel. And then you find yourself in that rut and rhythm again. And you just go back to your comfort food when it comes to politics and how you absorb all this. And it's very toxic right now. It's insane. It's off the reservation. It's nuts.
And remember, when people do think that or say that things have never been worse, you've got to. This puts a lot of things in perspective. Uh, During World War II, 2,000 people died every hour. That's the World Trade Center every hour, on the hour, for 8 years. Every hour, on the hour, 2,000 people died. Things have been worse. And so let's not have golden age syndrome where we say things. The coverage of things is so much more intense of everything. And if someone like racism, if someone does something racism in a public park in Omaha, we see it. It used to just happen at that public park in Omaha. Now we think the sky is falling. I think we're all getting worse. I mean, I think the perception is things are getting worse, but as human beings, we're always getting better. Every child is born within 10 miles of getting a vaccine that babies get. There's never been less war, even though we get better coverage of it. So you're right; it's the coverage, and we have choice about whether or not to have an opinion on it, which is hypocritical for us to say, of course. But we don't have to have an opinion on everything, and we don't have to let everything bother us. Now, reactions to things that happen are really important, or lack thereof. You don't have to react. You don't have to have an opinion.
Yeah, I think what I'm getting at too is that there's a lot of younger social media influencers. Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated, was a big one, right? He's gone, and there's being a vacuum that's being filled by his wife and some. It just, again, I'm not as dialed into this as a lot of other younger people who are, but there are a number of young influencers in politics who are raging hate and dysfunction and bitterness, and they're great orators. They speak eloquently. These are guys in their 20s and 30s and speak better than Tucker Carlson or Bill O'Reilly or whoever you would say, Chris Cuomo, whoever it is. They're young. And man, they are fearless in a bad way, in my opinion. They'll say anything about race, religion, other countries, other skin color from them, and they're going nuts. And that's all over my screen and my media too. And I'm like, look, I don't follow any of these guys or gals, but it's all over the place because I think it's just wild now, the explosion of the algorithm. If you want to put politics in, you want to put in Republican, you want to put in Democrat, it's going to bring you into this unbelievable space where you're going to get bombarded with everything.
Yeah, and negative sells on the internet. That's why in all of my social media platforms, I point out that being kind shows your confidence. Acting like a tough guy, and here we are sometimes acting like a tough guy on the radio with our bare muscles. I know, but in life in general, when you are kind, it shows confidence, and when you act like a tough guy, it shows some kind of weakness. And you got to act like a tough guy, and you got to be negative on social media to get more people to watch. And I'd like to say, quite proudly, you say some of these people, including Charlie Kirk, have all this influence. I didn't know who he was. He was never in my algorithm. I never saw him on Instagram. I never saw him on my Facebook, and I never saw him on my Twitter. So, and I was covering news, and so when that happened, that really hit me like a ton of bricks in the way that wow, I knew who he was for the first time because he appeared on Gavin Newsom's podcast, and that seemed to be a big deal. I don't listen to a lot of politicians' podcasts. I just know that was a news story. So that's when I first heard the name. The second time I heard the name, he was shot. So you say these people have a lot of influence, but he never came up in my algorithm. And so judge that how you will. I judge it proudly. Again, one thing we've learned from him and from Rob Reiner is that if someone dies and they're not your cup of tea, shut up. That's not the time to mention into a microphone or on social media, and you lose your job too. We found out it's you just if you want to say it to your friend at the bar, it's different. That's what we've got now. We've got politicians and influencers who are saying the stuff that people only used to say in the dark bar, the dark shit. Sometimes people say after a couple of beers. And now we've got politicians who talk like the idiot in the bar.
Yeah, there's a lot there to unpack. I will just say that I think the rise this is our year in review podcast. We're looking back. We're going to be covering a lot of things here. That the rise of the social media influencer,
Mm-hmm.
for good or bad, is at an alarming rate to me. It is not that I believe, as you know, I'm a broadcaster, freedom of speech.
Yep.
You got to know where the guardrails are. You got to know where the cliff is, the Wile E. Coyote cliff.
Yeah.
You can't go near it. I don't like to go near it, but I'll tell you what young people are consuming now via social media, because the young people are not going to sit down and watch an hour news magazine show. They're not. It's a tiny group now. Young people are not going to sit down and watch, a Wall Street Journal report on the economy. They're
Right.
not. They're gonna get everything in a minute to a minute 30, and a lot of them are going to have what they're looking at is going to have confetti and AI, the rise of AI. Let's just not dive into that. I'm 60 years old in media, and I look at a lot of content every day. I'd say now every 3 out of 10 things I look at are super manufactured AI, taking someone who died and putting them with someone modern and talking to each other about what they deem or politics or
Yeah.
something is wild to me. I don't mind putting Babe Ruth next to Bonds and Babe's talking to Bonds and Bonds is talking to Babe. Okay, I get that. But now putting Andrew Jackson in AI with the current president or putting the former president in an AI with someone else, I
Or
think
how about
it's,
you? You must have seen this one, JFK at Dealey Plaza, talking about what happened that day.
yeah. I
Some
mean,
of
you
us
mentioned Rob.
agree. Ah,
Yeah, you mentioned the good AI. I saw something on Rob Reiner where it was one of those AI views where he's younger. He's Mike Stivic and Archie Bunker, and then as he ages in front of you, and he's walking into the trailers of all the movies that he made.
uh-huh.
Stand by Me, A Few Good Men,
Oh,
The Princess Bride, and they're showing him at that age and how he's getting older and older and older to his final movie, Spinal Tap 2. And that's a really productive, good form of entertainment to see that when it's done in a good way. And I'm in the stock market every day, and I love following the AI stocks and the tech stocks. And I look at the market today as we're sitting here, and I just want to tell you, at the end of each year, I get a new calendar. So Christmas gifts in the other room,
mhm.
get a bunch of nice gifts. I got a new iPhone this year.
Oh,
I didn't
nice.
want one. I didn't want one. I almost got mad at Christmas. I'm like, why am I getting a new iPhone? She's like, your deal was up. Your deal was up. Your phone's archaic. I got you a brand new one. And I'm like, oh no, I don't know my passwords. I don't want to plug in this one and that one. But getting back to what I said about AI, the stock market is, with a few days left, is at 48,642. So at the end of the year, the last trading day, I'm going to go to the back of my planner, as I always do in red, and give you the close of the Dow. And years ago, the Dow was 19,000, 24,000, 30,000. Now it's approaching 50,000. So I'm like, okay. But as you know, Tom, a lot of people don't have stocks and bonds. A
Right.
lot of people can't afford to buy stocks
Gonna
and
all
bonds.
work. Yep.
So that affects them too. So the economy, politics, the Oval, all the way to the wars that are going on around, Ukraine war and all that. I think this was a year that we're going to look back on and say, with all the good, there was sure a bunch of loud negativity, right? Is that the way to describe
Oh,
it? Loud negativity.
oh, of course. And I don't know if that ever has changed. The deal is we have a lot better coverage of it because we have, you talk about New Year's resolutions. They say you shouldn't go to bed with your phone. I go to bed with my phone right up to the last second. I love laying in bed with the phone, and I supposedly, I don't know how good the research is because it's such a new phenomena that you fall asleep a lot easier if you're not staring into a blue light. But nevertheless, I think, as I keep mentioning, because optimism is my oxygen, as you know, and I just think that a lot of ways because of our instant access to information, uh, we have instant access to negative information as well, which sells better than positive. Maya Angelou's words of wisdom and Neil deGrasse Tyson, the great, very positive scientist. He's got a lot of followers, but people who say inspirational things and remind us that the world is doing quite well don't have as many followers as the people who are pouring gas and lighting matches.
Yeah, that's another thing about the internet. And we spend a lot of time talking about social media and what we're seeing because it's changed since Looney and I started doing radio years ago, decades ago, and we got our information in different ways, like a newspaper or the late sports center. Now, as it's gone on super light speed and we get our information, there are times where I'm hosting my radio show during the day and we get some Raiders content and I'll look down at my phone. Luckily, I'll be looking down on it because I can do four things at once.
Mhm.
Adam Schefter will tell me about a player on the team I'm covering being inactive or whatever. So we're getting information without a lot of time to consume it and then come back and talk about it. I have always thought that's a strength of what I do. I do a lot of live radio at night. So when I see the game winning three be made, the walk off, I know the standings, I know the box score, and I can talk about it quickly. I think I've done that as good as anybody ever because I've had more practice. I've been on the radio longer than anyone in radio during live sports. So I don't need a cup of coffee in the morning and six producers hovering over me saying, no, that's not a good take. No, that's a take. This is what he's saying. This is what they say. No, I watch it in real time and I react because I'm a sports fan. But with the social media and politics and everything else we're getting, they're just throwing it at you in the blink of an eye. Every time you blink, you're getting two or three more different opinions about something that just happened or might happen in the future, Tom.
We have an American Pope. Speaking of opinions on issues, and
Leo,
taking the positive angle on things. And if you take a look at his opinions on almost everything in America, it's amazing how people think of the Catholic religion as so conservative, but nevertheless, the opinions on the Catholic, and one of those people always say your politics, you and JT, your politics is always saying you get along so well. That's because a lot of our opinions are very Catholic. And the charitable in America, the charitable opinions of the Catholic Church would be considered squishy because we make everything political in America. Feeding the poor and taking care of the homeless is a squishy liberal idea, even though the symbol of Jesus is a bleeding heart. We think of peace as a peacenik, a hippie, kind of a liberal thing. Things like being hungry people in America. Things like for some people that's and when you think about it, this American man who's espousing that we make sure that people have clothes and food and make sure we have peace and treat immigrants with dignity is considered in America a squishy liberal opinion. Well, no, it's first of all it's a Catholic opinion, and second of all, a lot of times it's choosing the sunshine over the darkness. And then no matter what your politics or what your religion, it is nice to have a pope we understand who likes to choose lightness over dark.
He's the peace pope. Leo's the peace pope. He wants peace, which all popes should want. So we're going to get out of the world and we're going to pivot here as I welcome my fraternity brother Vinny into the live feed. And this is all podcast. So what we need you to do, I listen to a few podcasts, David Spade and Dana Carvey, Fly on the Wall. I'll listen to Smartless or whatever. In the middle of the podcast, they pause and then they run ads. And we're kind of ad free. We have this new rule. We'll work 45 minutes for free. And then after that, you're going to have to pay me. And we got some excitement with the podcast brewing for next year. But I want to move on to an angle in sports now that I'm seeing. And as we look back at the year in review, we know that the major champions, and we love everybody who wins. You hockey fans who love the Florida Panthers, no disrespect. Whoever won the NASCAR, no disrespect. But when we look at baseball, football, and basketball, it's the Dodgers, Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Eagles. And I'll start with the Eagles because they won the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts did. Saquon Barkley's the reason they did. They got one guy who won them the Super Bowl. You don't think one guy's important? The Eagles don't sniff the playoffs of the Super Bowl. They had Saquon Barkley, 2,000 yards. It was like Jim Brown, Barry Sanders, Walter Payton. They won the Super Bowl. And then the running back position came back. But now the Eagles are struggling. They won the division, so they're not struggling in theory, but they're having a year where they're trying to figure it out. And Kansas City, excuse me, has been eliminated.
Before you move along, we said that all last year about Philadelphia, and even suggesting their coach might get fired during the season. And then once maybe Halloween, Thanksgiving came along, then Philadelphia got their shit together. So Philadelphia does seem to be a very successful, dysfunctional franchise at this point, because they were last year as well.
They have what you need for every good team. They, even if they're injured, they base their franchise in the trenches, defensive line, offensive line, and then they build out, and they do a pretty good job. OKC, when they won the title in the NBA, and I still think have the best record this year, it's chemistry personified. Not only do they have SGA, the reigning MVP, but Chet Holmgren, all their role players know how to pass. It's the closest thing that reminds me to that Warriors recent dynasty, where the Warriors had Clay, Steph, Draymond, Andre Iguodala, a bunch of guys who knew their role, but to get the ball to Steph, OKC could win 3 or 4 championships if they keep this core together, and they're going to be the favorite to win it all this year.
I don't agree that it's chemistry personified, because chemistry in sports isn't necessarily real. And if you remember the Lakers back to back in the early part of the century, they didn't have any chemistry. They didn't like each other. So that's either overrated or doesn't exist, but talent does. And the Lakers had it, and the Oklahoma City Thunder, they all seem to get along, what you're calling chemistry, and they've got the talent to win back to back if they can keep that band together.
When it comes to the Dodgers, it pains me that they won this title. It does. And I know you live in Los Angeles, and the Dodgers are very close to your heart. I'm upset the Dodgers won this one, because I think they shouldn't have won this one. When you have a team that's great and they're going to win several, I think I was one of the only national guys on the radio, who reminded everybody how average to below average their entire season was.
It was.
They lost 6 out of 6 to Milwaukee. They couldn't beat Philly. Yeah. They had tremendous slumps. They were injured. Of course, everybody has injuries. I'll give you credit. Dodgers had more. They were never really any good. And then they had to be a wild card team, even though when they were in the division, they had to play right out of the gate. Then they had to go on the road throughout the postseason, and they were so beatable the entire postseason. No one knew how to stick the Game of Thrones dagger in them and twist it. They put the dagger in the Dodgers, but then the Dodgers moved and the dagger came out, like kind of for effort, not getting a half an inch lead off a third when he was out by an eighth of an inch at home plate. Right. Would have been the end of the World Series run for the Dodgers. So I don't like that Ohtani's money is deferred. It drives me crazy that they don't have to pay him what he deserves to be paid. They can put it on the global national debt of baseball 40 years down the road, but they won the title. And I tip my cap to the Dodgers on how they closed out Toronto.
What an incredible season. And I just thought there was no way, the way they played all year, and they kept, during the regular season, the definition of insanity, trying the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, because they have great starting pitching, and then they go to that bullpen who would just suck and give games away, game after game after game. And I thought, well, I guess they're not going to go into the postseason and then ditch all the bullpen guys. Well, they did. They said, we're not going to do it that way in the postseason. Then they use starters, starters as relievers, which they didn't try all year. And so they experimented in the postseason, which was brilliant. You got to give Dave Roberts and the organization credit for operations on the fly. They decided we can't win the World Series if we're going to play the same way we did in the regular season. And they didn't bang their head on the wall and do the definition of insanity for the postseason. That's how they ended up winning the World Series.
Yeah, the Dodgers are out of control spenders. They're out of control. So the only retaliation I get back from their fans is, well, your Yankees spent a lot. Well, let's do that. Let's review that. George Steinbrenner came in the 70s. He wasn't a billionaire. He wasn't. George Steinbrenner had in the hundreds of millions of dollars. He wasn't a conglomerate. He wasn't owned by a hedge fund company or whatever. And Steinbrenner decided to put all his money back into the franchise, his money. And then he started putting together these incredible television rights and stadium revenue, very much similar to Jerry Jones with the Cowboys when you saw the documentary, local, local, local for America's team. Well, the Yankees are the global baseball team. Sorry, Dodgers, they are. And the Yankees decided to say, we're going to have the Yes Network and we're going to advertise all over the outfield and we're going to do this. And George took that money and spent it. Well, the Dodgers now are doing the same thing. Ohtani's bringing in all this international Japanese advertising, global money, and they're spending it, but they're owned by a really bigger group than the Steinbrenner family with the Guggenheims and now Warner, the owner who bought the Lakers. And they're not holding back as other billionaires kind of hold back. The Mets, Steve Cohen, Hal Steinbrenner pulling back a little bit. The Dodgers, they have no ripcord. They're going to continue to spend, and they don't give a shit when anybody thinks. And watch out, they're going to win a lot.
The two most hypocritical moments so far in the show were, first of all, me, when I said when I wagged my finger and said, you don't have to have an opinion on everything. As we've spent 20 years having an opinion. So that's Marcus Aurelius comment that hypocritically comes out of my mouth. And then you having any opinion whatsoever on the Dodgers spending all the money they can to have a good team. Yankee fans saying that, but you have an opinion. The one thing that also is one of the great days we've had together over the last several years, and since the pandemic, not as many in person. And that was when you came out with your son to go to the Dodgers to the World Series. And we spent the day together before I dropped you off at the stadium. And we're in a bar on Sunset Boulevard, just a stone's throw from the stadium, grabbing a beer in the daylight. I broke my rule. And I said to you, are you going to be cheering for the Yankees at Dodger Stadium? And you said, aggressively. Like you were in 10th grade. And that's what makes you still a good broadcaster to this day, because you don't lose that passion, as you've got this great anti-Dodger passion because you want the Yankees to win it all and buy all the good players, and good for you.
Yeah, a quick reminder, and those who can do basic math, I'm talking toddler, like 4-year-old math. The Yankees have 27 rings. The Dodgers have 9. Let me repeat that. The Yankees have 27 rings, and the Dodgers had a black player named Jackie Robinson who broke the color barrier. So if you want to go back, we can go back. I keep reminding Dodger fans, the Dodgers are older than the Yankees. They've been around longer. They started in the 1800s as the Yankees started at the turn of the century in the 1900s. They're older, and they got 9. The Yankees got 27. They all count. We're not going to take any away because you didn't like the 70s or the 50s or the 40s. No, we don't do that. We don't take away rings because you don't like the year. We don't take away Bobby Jones winning the Masters when he did, because now there's new clubs and the live guys can play. We don't touch it. But I will say I'm nervous that the Dodgers are going to go on this particular run, and it's going to be like 6 out of 8 or 5 out of 7. And they're going to go from 9 to 13 pretty quickly here. And 27 minus 13 is still a number, but the Dodgers are coming, and their money will not slow them down.
And you always mention that you can't take away people's or teams' accomplishments. But that's just, we have your fingers crossed that I'm never in charge in Canton, Ohio. So I can go in there and say, wait a minute, Bart Starr? Well, come here. Oh my God. Trent Dilfer had better numbers than you. I'm going to go into that Hall of Fame and grab Terry Bradshaw. I know you won 4 Super Bowls. You completed like 47% of your passes. You would have been benched. And so I would just start going into the Hall of Fame and yanking those busts out.
Are you more surprised that Kansas City is out of the playoffs or Detroit? I'll go first. I'm going to go Detroit. I thought the Kansas City thing eventually would slow down, and I didn't see Denver coming. Oh, my God. Did Denver win another game where it was 13-13 with 4 minutes left and they won? Oh, yeah, they did it again. I got an unbelievable Broncos stat, but I'm bummed out Detroit is out, because Detroit's a damn good football team, man. And we don't need to have the playoffs with a good team like that, not the 7 seed or 6 seed. So, Tom, no Mahomes, no Goff. Detroit was pretty close the last couple of years. Kansas City all those AFC West titles coming to an end. But I'm shocked that the Lions are limited from postseason play.
Well, remember, it's the last 25 years, well, the turn of the century, 90s, early 2000s, and we were on the radio together. And every time even the San Antonio Spurs lost a game, I loved it. And it wasn't very often. And anytime they got eliminated from the playoffs, I loved it because I feared them. I was a Laker fan. I wanted bad things to happen to the Spurs. And the same thing as the Kansas City Chiefs. As an NFL fan, I just want Kansas City to be out of the picture. And last year, I thought, all those games that they won in the last seconds, they lost all those this year. So that's why it wasn't surprising if you take a look at it through the numbers. But just emotionally, yes, I'm shocked. I'm more shocked about the Detroit Lions been bad all of our life. I'm more shocked that the Kansas City Chiefs aren't in there because every time they lost for this year, I was still surprised. People were catching. I'm not surprised Patrick Mahomes is out. People were catching him this year. He didn't used to get caught ever. You could not sack Patrick Mahomes. This year was sack. So that's the reason why he's not playing right now. Too many times he got hurt, and they were catching him this year, and so that's why. It's and when it comes to the Detroit Lions, I'm disappointed for Lions fans. The last 2 years was their window. To win a Super Bowl. They were good enough to win the Super Bowl the last few years, and so that's too bad that their window might be closing. But I'm more surprised about this.
Well, let me just tell you, being here in the Raider Nation, and I have some things to tell you about the Raider Nation. The only thing that would help me with the Raiders is if both Denver and the Chargers did not win a playoff game. You can go to the playoffs. If you don't win a playoff game, okay, you haven't won a playoff game since blank. Raiders went to the playoffs twice with Derek Carr. 2016, he broke his ankle, so he couldn't play in the playoffs. Raiders were 12-4. They didn't win a playoff game. And then when they moved to Vegas, we went to the playoffs. Lost to Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. Got there twice, not that long ago, but didn't win a playoff game. If I can see the Chargers in Denver eliminated quickly, that will bring some form of peace to the greatness of the Raiders.
Yeah, and that's just I just feel bad. You know, your quote last week was, I was surprised you said it into a microphone stuff, but that the Lakers, that the Raiders can't run a play. And so that's a tough pre and post game, as you've been doing for years for the Raiders and doing play-by-play as well. That's tough for you when your team can't run a play. And so you've got a long I was going to say you got a long road to hoe. But as we've seen in the NFL, teams that don't make it this year doesn't mean they're not making it into the playoffs next year.
Yeah, the problem I'm having now that is hard is this is a really big thing I'm about to say right here in the JT and Looney podcast. We are finally in the load management era of the NFL. And there's obviously been guys who have rested the last week or two in NFL history. But there were guys who rested in the NBA in the 70s and 80s. Not much, but now it's out of control and we call it load management. Well, load management is here now. If you are out of the playoffs, completely eliminated with 2 to 3 games left, it is now proper to sit your starters and sit your stars. The fans say to themselves, well, he doesn't need to play because of blank. No. They play because they only play 17 games a year. Take out the practice and the meetings and all that. There's 365 days, and there's 17 where you play a game that matters. And if you're in the playoffs, you play more than that. So you want to play. You have career stats. You have career goals. You have individual goals. You have bonuses if you have this many tackles or sacks. So don't tell me that players don't want to play. You don't want them to play. You don't want them to play, which that's your opinion. But you're not in the locker room. You're not with that player. And I always say, my new line is Ask Max. I got Raider fans saying, well, you need to sit Bowers. Well, Bowers is going to sit. He's on the IR because he was hurt this year. He missed a number of games for an injury. But Max is healthy, and Max has got a little bit of a knee bump, and Max will try to play. If the Raiders decide to shut him down, and it's his decision with the coaches, I'm fine with that. But I'm now at a point where everybody is saying, rest the starters. We used to say when the team clinched the playoffs, Tony Dungy blew it with Manning. They got the bye week. They rested everybody the week before the bye week at the end of the year when they were going to be off, and then they inflamed. So I don't think fans who don't have anything invested in the game other than their money and their fandom, very important, should be telling players, yeah, you're going into an offseason that's going to start January, February, March, April, May, June, July. August is the preseason. You're going to have 8 months without any real games. Don't play week 17 and 18 because we want to save you for next year. Give me a fucking break. Save you for 8 months from now. You're a football player. You'll play when you're healthy.
Do you not want to be entertained? That would be my question. It's not your body. Do you not want to be entertained? I want the best players out there. This isn't Kawhi Leonard no-show jobs. Kawhi Leonard had 2 great no-show jobs. One with the Clippers, and the other one with some company that's no longer in existence. But you don't want that. Ask Clipper fans. As the most diehard Clipper fans can't stand Kawhi Leonard. They were so happy when they got him, and they couldn't be more disappointed. And that no-show job guy, and that load management lug. So, we want to be entertained. As you mentioned, too, you work 17 days a year, show up.
Yeah, I have more anger thrown at me, which we'll get to because we're going to wrap this up in a little bit with New Year's resolutions. I don't coach. I don't block. I don't tackle. I don't cause offsides. I don't drop football passes. And people, a small group, blame me for the team wanting to win or wanting to lose. I've never seen that happen before. I'm going to take it as a badge of honor, number one, that people are listening and following me. But I have the same line I have with everything. Raiders got 2 games left. I'll be at both of them. They're home games. I'm anchoring the radio broadcast. I'm going to come in. I know that winning is not going to help. A win does not help the Raiders down the stretch here, other than the players and coaches that want to win, and that's their livelihood. I get that. But for the fans, I understand where the fans are coming from. But what I've been saying is, let them play. They're going to play. They're not going to play who you want them to play and sit who you want them to sit in general. So get more worked up on a Monday for a game on a Sunday because a couple of guys might play that you think should be benched because you don't like them playing. No, it doesn't work that way. The coaches and the players, Tom, make that decision.
And you have to remember this, JT, and that is that if you win out as the Raiders and then you end up with the 3rd pick, the Chicago Bulls ended up with the 3rd pick. Who says that the 1st pick or the 2nd pick aren't going to be Sam Bowie? So, and you know that in the NFL, you just take a look at just pick any year's draft. Take a look at how many players' names you don't recognize that were chosen in the 1st round. Or if you do recognize them, you realize, oh my God, disappeared into the night. And so it's such a crapshoot anyway. If you think it doesn't work out always when you're trying to get the 1st round draft pick or the 1st overall pick in the draft, because that doesn't mean you're going to get the best player. As you know, from LaMarcus Russell on down, the quarterbacks that the Raiders and other teams could have had if only fill in the blank.
Yeah, this is a great example of it. The Raiders play the Giants Sunday at Allegiant Stadium. Both teams are 1 and 2 for the draft pick. The Giants have the 1st pick overall coming into the game. Giants were better than the Raiders all year. Remember, Denver needed 32 points in the 4th quarter to beat them. The Giants, Russell Wilson threw for 450 in Dallas and had them beat. The Raiders have been bad for most of the year other than their 1st win at New England. So with all that being said, when you see all this go down, if the Raiders lose and they lose to Kansas City after that, and that's going to be hard to lose to Kansas City. They don't have Gardner Minshew, the backup, or Patrick Mahomes. They're on the 3rd string. They asked the janitor to play quarterback in Vegas. So let's assume the Raiders lose out. They'll get the 1st pick, and the fans will want Mendoza,
right,
the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, and he might be the best pick of all time. But a Hall of Famer told me this over the holiday, yesterday on Christmas. He said, stop thinking about a draft pick. Think about a draft class. And it hit me like a wave in the ocean in Maui when I put my face into the wave. I came out of the wave. I'm like, you're right. You might get the 1st, 2nd, 6th pick in the 1st round. He might not be what you dreamed of. I get it. Go build the class after that pick. Have a great draft class and make the class great. And then the pick who's 1st or 2nd or 3rd is going to be a very good player. Worry about him and the players behind him. And that's the only thing I'm going to say going forward. I am not going to fall in love with a draft pick other than one.
Who
Arch
told you?
Manning. And we'll say Arch Manning. You stepped on my punchline.
Sorry.
Arch Manning. Arch Manning is if Arch Manning was available, I'd go 0-17. Arch Manning is not available. He's going to come back another year from now. I don't want to watch the Raiders go 0-17. But if they did, I'd go pick Arch Manning up at the airport.
Wow. And who was? I'm trying to think who the Hall of Fame was. It Dan Marino? Who told you that? What was the Hall of Famer that you talked to?
I'll leave that. I know many Hall of Famers to name drop. I know many Hall of Famers on a personal note.
I talked to two GMs today, including
don't do that.
Including the general manager of the Sidewalk Cafe in Venice Beach, and they agree with you about the draft class.
Well, Colin doesn't even lie about it anymore. He'll just go to dinner with the Chargers GM, and then the next day say, "I went to dinner with the GM." Right. No, you went with the Chargers GM. So we get that. Let's get to the thing we wanted to touch on real quickly was, as I mentioned, privileged TV, because I don't think we covered that. The games are on Netflix and Prime.
Yep.
I have Netflix and Prime. Please explain to everyone, Tom, who doesn't have Netflix in America and Prime?
Well, yeah, a lot of people, millions of people don't. Not everyone. In Amazon Prime, a lot of people have, as we find out since the pandemic, so they can get stuff delivered so they don't have to go to the mall. That's the reason why I got it. And I didn't get it to watch movies, and I didn't get it to watch football, but that's it's a great perk of Amazon that I have now, and I love movies, so I have Netflix. But it's privileged TV, and not only that, when it comes to watching it on a streaming network, also the downside of it is, first of all, that people all over the country can't watch the game. That's the number one downside, because that sucks. You can't build a great. I mean, they've built probably an untouchable franchise, an untouchable product in the NFL, but nevertheless, it's not a great way to sustain it. But the number one thing is when the dog steps on the remote when it's streaming, then you have to push 3 buttons and go back. If it's on channel 4, the dog steps on the remote and it switches to channel 37, you just switch it back to 4. Bink. But if something happens with the remote, you push the wrong button, the dog steps on the remote, it's several steps to get it back. You miss a minute. That sucks too.
All right, New Year's resolutions. I want to go first. This is just, this is a resolution, and I've never used this before on the JT and Looney podcast. When it comes to, looking at, social media, there's no doubt about it. I got to look at far less. Yep. That's being honest. I got on a plane with my ill mom, came back, and I opened up the phone and I landed in Vegas. I opened up my phone and I had 200 mentions. Someone put out a tweet saying, screenshot all the bad things JT said about you on Christmas Eve, and let's start a thread on that. And I'm like, wow, Christmas Eve, someone would do that to me, but that's what people do. People are in the business to try to get people to like them and whatever. And, over the years, someone says something really bad and personal to me, which doesn't happen a lot, but it happens. I'll just go right back at them and call them a dope or a dummy. Nothing graphic. There's no pictures of anything. It's just dummy, idiot. I use idiot a lot. And I'm going to stop doing that because some people can't handle that, and some people can't handle it. And then I'm looked at, this is even worse. I'm looked at as a bully because someone attacked me and said something heinous to me. And then I fired back. Ooh, I'm here. Ooh, I'm here. And now I'm the bad guy for that. So you can't win that. So we'll be closing the DMs to be a little bit more productive. That is a resolution because there are just so many shallow people who are anonymous. They're anonymous, and I'm always available. I'm at the Torch. I'm doing radio remotes at pizza parlors. I'm there for everybody. You can come up to me anywhere, and no one comes up. But the anonymous people that do that, so we're gonna close out or try to close out the DMs in 2026.
That's a great way to close out the podcast because your wife and I have been begging you to stop doing that for years.
Yeah,
I always say you should be above it. Be like Princess Diana. You can, untouchable. No one can get to you. No one can talk to you. No one can get you to talk back unless you speak to them first. We've been begging you for that. And you don't have to read comments, but that's that tough Long Island side of you that had to punch back. And now As you start a new decade in life, that makes me feel good. That is one of your resolutions. I got to ask you though. You mentioned the torch. Why didn't we open up with this? Don't you?
Yeah,
Don't
we're gonna. Yeah, I gotta. Yeah, let's just tease that because I'm
okay.
gonna wait till the weekend to put that out. But I'm having a very. We can tease this part about it. I'm having a very, very a high honor coming my way
Okay.
this weekend. The highest honor you could possibly have, I believe, and I'm excited about that. And we're gonna get into that. The Giants and the Raider game for me, and again, I love the fact that it's going to be a game that's going to just be studied. They're going to study this game, Raiders, Giants at MIT, Harvard, and Stanford, and go, wait a second, there's gambling involved in sports. A whole bunch of players aren't playing on one team. A whole bunch of players aren't playing on the other team. What are we actually doing on 2nd and 9? Why was the ball thrown into the first deck on 3rd and 15 instead of check down? Why did someone just take it? Why did someone just take a safety in the end zone when they weren't about to get sacked?
Right.
This game is going to be unbelievable. Whoever you want to win, Giants or the Raiders, both teams have had a terrible year. But the fact that both of these teams would appreciate the first round pick and have coaches, one is an interim coach with the Giants, he wants to win. He's an interim coach. He might never coach again. And then Pete Carroll, you think he wants to win? All the guy is wired to win daily. So this is going to be interesting to see, Tom.
Well, will tell you one thing that this game will not be studied at Harvard. It might be studied at Slippery Rock or Adelphi, but it will not be studied at Harvard or Stanford. I guarantee you that.
Yeah. I want to thank you because we just saw each other. You came out for my 60th, which people are still talking about. You were there for my mom. I started off the show. My mom suffered a very serious illness. She's doing better, which is really important to me. And you were checking in on me every day. So I appreciate that along with some other friends. And then what we hope to do with the podcast in the new year is like take it up another level.
Right.
We got the video aspect of this. It was an audio podcast forever. I listen to other podcasts. I think we kick ass compared to a lot of the other ones because we're two friends. It's not made up. It's very authentic what we talk about. But we'd like to thank you on any platform that you're hearing us or now seeing us on the YouTube channel, on JT the Brick on YouTube. All the Looney social media is up where all you get a ton of Looney content, but try to help us take this up a notch so we can work more than 45 minutes. We could do maybe 2 or 3 a week. And if you like the podcast, I think if it's worth our while, we'll do 2 or 3 a week instead of 1 a week. Don't you agree, Tom?
Love that idea. Love that goal for the new year for 2026. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
No. We're not done yet. You didn't give us your resolution.
Oh, well,
Don't huff and puff. I can see you rolling your eyes. You got to walk the dog? Are you late to pick up your dry cleaning? I'm sorry. I'm holding you up.
I am
90 seconds.
I'm always in a hurry, even when I'm not in a hurry. I find Anthony Bourdain and I have that in common. I saw a documentary on Anthony Bourdain, and it's the same with me. I drink too much coffee. I'm not in a hurry. Well, as I mentioned earlier on, when it comes to New Year's resolutions or resolutions in general, write down your goals. As I always say, it's really important. It's like buying a pair of running shoes. And I wasn't prepared to give any of mine, but I will tell you this: when there's one thing I'm going to do in order to improve the world, or when I see wrong, and you have to do something positive. I'm not going to go to a protest. The immigration thing's going to bother me, but I'm not going to go to a protest. I'd like to speak at one, but I don't have the gravitas of background in order to do that. So one of the things I'm going to work on in 2026, which I wasn't going to mention this, is I'm going to get certified as a teacher of English as a second language. And with a political science background, I can teach people how to become citizens. So I can take all the majority of decent people who come into this country and teach them how to become citizens and teach them how to speak English. And that's the way I can turn some of the ugliness and put some sunshine and shine a light on some of the people who don't feel safe and some of the people that might need a little help. And I'm not going to go to a protest and do those things, like I said, and do anything angry. I'll do something positive and pay things forward. and contribute to the world in a positive way and an issue that I feel strongly about.
Beautifully said. I'm going to try to see my family more in 2026 and 2025. That's going to be a bigger priority for
Right.
me than radio and what my jobs. I've been there, done that. I hope to work for many more years
You
at
will.
my own pace, which is intense and fast, but more family time for me in 2026. Thanks everybody for listening to the JT and Looney podcast.